Welcome back to the shop. In this week's video, you're going to see us making some table bases. Now, we were commissioned to make 2 custom tables, and you see us here, we're cutting out all the parts for the actual legs themselves. Now, these have the uprights, the bases that go like on the floor, and some gussets. Now, this is some 2" by 2", some 120 wall mild steel, and you can see this slugger saw here just making short work of it. And because we're making 2, we have twice as much of everything. So we're making the gussets that are going to go on the bottom of this, down on the corners, and we got it set up the gauge at 45 degrees, and we're just cutting 2 45s off, and that's going to make a perfect 90 for these gussets. And because we got 2 sets of these, we need 8 of these gussets. So here, these are the bases. This is what's going to sit on the floor, and we're laying out these bases. So we're going to add this radius to the top of them so we don't have a sharp outside corner. Now that circle that you see there, that's just something that was cut out. That's just something that we had laying around, and it worked out just perfect for what we needed. So then back to the slugger saw, we're just using it to whack off all that extra material, and then we'll use an angle grinder to actually grind in that radius. And again, because we're doing 2 tables, we have 8 of these to do. Now we just throw them up, and once again we're using that magnetic clamp, and it works out perfect. Even these 2" by 2" tubes, and we're hanging them off the end, it holds it there perfect, just what we need. Here we're back at the plasma table, and these are the uprights. And what we're doing is we're cutting some holes in the center of these, and that's what we're going to use to run the bolts through to attach the spreader bars to the 2 table legs. Now we could have used the drill press or set it up on the Bridgeport, but to get a 3/4 inch drill bit and do all that, it's just as easy to draw it in Fusion and use the table to cut them out. So once we have all our components, we throw it up on the table and weld it all out. Our settings for this 120 wall are 18 volts and about 250 inches a minute with 035 wire. Now off camera, we cut out these end caps, and we just start by tacking it on the bottom, and then we'll grab a clamp and clamp it down to the table, and what that does is that just bends it down to that radius that we ground into the end of those. And again, we have 8 of these to do, but once we have everything set up, we just set them all up on the table and do one right after the other. And that's 16 gauge, what we use for those end caps. So we turn the settings down on our machine. They're about 17 volts and about 200 inches a minute or so, and that seems to work out pretty good to weld that 16 gauge to that 1/8 inch material. Once everything's welded out, this is the time consuming part. We take a flap disc and the angle grinder, and we clean up all those welds, smooth them all out, and our end goal, what we're trying to achieve here, is to make it look like it's all one piece of steel. And to do that, one of the things that I like to do is I like to use a flap disc that's a little bit worn. It takes a little bit more time, but with a little bit of finesse, you can get it looking just right. And that worn flap disc, it's a lot harder to take more material than what you really wanted to. So these are those spreader bars, and they're 1.5" tubing, DOM tubing, and I want to say they're 1/8 inch thick. And that's a 3/4 inch bolt and nut, and that nut fits in there just right. So what we do is we put that nut in there with the bolt, tack it up, spin it back and forth, make sure it's nice and straight, and once it is, we weld it on out. And we do this to all 4 ends. So what we're cutting out here are the washers that are going to go between the bolt and those uprights. Now, we had bought just regular round washers for these tables, but again, it comes down to the details, and this is going to make it look real nice. These custom washers add that extra little bit of custom touch. Now these tables are for the fire department, and the 91 and 92 signify this, the 2 stations, one for table for each station. Once again, you can see how well that magnetic clamp works on this edge of the table. Just those little pieces, I think they're about 2.5, 3 inches tall and 1 3/4 inches wide. Once they're clamped to that with that magnet, then those things don't go anywhere. And that's it, that's where they go. So here we've opened up our fusion, and we're drawing some gussets for the tops of these uprights. Now the first thing that we do is we create a new component, start a sketch within that component, and because we had this in a DXF file, we import the DXF file into the sketch, and then we start making the adjustments. The first thing that I did is I made a box of the actual overall size of these gussets that I want, and then I moved the DXF file into that box, and then you can see I'm just going through and deleting the stuff that I don't want. So this is what I love about doing it in Fusion and drawing it first, is I got it to the size that I wanted and decided, after I went to extrude it, decided, no, that's not what I wanted, because I wanted the two to mirror each other. I wanted there to be a left and a right. So you can see here, I'm just found the center of it, cutting off the excess stuff so I can have a mirror. I draw a profile, or a plane line, and then mirror it to the other side. So now I have a perfect left and right, both of them the same exact size. And I go through, extrude it, move it over, get it ready for manufacture, and then cut them out. Once we get it to the size that we want, we need 4 for each table, so we just make another copy of it, and then you can see us going through the actual manufacturing or creating the tool path for these. And every time I run it through the simulator, make sure that we get everything, run it through the man, that's hard for me to say, the post processor. It creates the G code. We run it through Mach 3, and then we have a piece of 10 gauge here. This is 1/8 inch mild steel, and you can see it going to work cutting here. Now, if you've really been paying attention, you can see that I added a little bit to this drawing. And again, that's one of the benefits of doing it in Fusion. I got to looking at it and said, nah, you know what, we need to add some more. Again, it comes down to the details. So we added the FMFD to these medallions, or to these corners of the medallions for these gussets. A quick cleanup on these and they'll be ready to weld. So here we are again with the miller, and because that's a 2 inch by 2 inch tubing, we have that 1/8 inch material. I just took some 1 inch by 1 inch square tubing and put underneath there, and that's going to get it close enough to center, good enough for what it's for. And the settings on this are again 18.3 volts, about 250 inches a minute, and still running that 035 wire. And we just decided to run about 1.5 inch long bead in all 4 of those corners. That's plenty, more than what really this thing needs. You can see how these things are shaping up. They're gonna be some really nice tables and last them a really long time. Now this is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, where we do the table tops, the wood inlays, and get everything all finished up and ready for delivery. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.